Washington wants to keep the power to watch, listen, collect, and analyze. President Trump's answer appears to be simple. Before you ask Americans to trust surveillance state, you prove you can protect the ballot box. So on June 14th, Trump announced that he opposes any renewal of FISA, Section 702, unless Congress attaches his voting legislation, the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship for any federal voter registration. The move instantly reframes the debate that has long been stuck in the weeds of intelligence policy and civil liberties into something far more immediate and far more dangerous for the political class. It forces a question they have spent years trying to avoid. Why citizenship verification is treated like a threat to democracy, while federal surveillance is treated like a necessity of governance. Let's start with what FISA Section 702 actually does, because the details matter here. The program allows the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, and whomever else, I guess, to collect communications of foreigners located overseas without a warrant. That sounds narrow, but the architecture is broad enough to sweep up Americans who are communicating with those foreign targets. Your email to a business contact in Frankfurt, your call to a cousin in Lahore, your text to a journalist in London, all of it can be collected incidentally. And once the data is in the system, federal agencies can query it. The FBI alone has conducted millions of these queries over the past several years, including searches related to January 6 protesters, Black Lives Matter activists, and even members of Congress. The program is set to expire soon, unless Congress renews it. And the intelligence community has been in full panic mode, warning that letting it lapse would amount to unilateral disarmament in the fight against terrorism and cyber threats. But the renewal fight has also hit a wall. The House recently voted down a short-term extension, 198 to 218, with opposition coming from a weird coalition of Democrats and 19 Republicans. The Democrats largely objected on civil liberties grounds, which is interesting because they were perfectly okay with these FISA nonsense to investigate President Trump. Anyway, arguing that the program is warrantless surveillance that violates the Fourth Amendment. Duh. The Republican opposition is more varied. Some share the civil liberties concerns. Others believe that the program has been weaponized against conservatives, President Trump, citing FBI's history of querying 702 data for domestic political purposes. Whatever the reason, the vote failed, and the leadership is scrambling to find a path forward. This is where Trump enters. Instead of simply demanding FISA reform, which has been the standard Republican position for years, he's attached a condition. He will support renewal, but only if Congress passes the Save America Act first. That bill will require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. It would also mandate that states remove non-citizens from their voter rolls and impose criminal penalties on election officials who fail to comply. The legislation has been stalled in committee since its introduction, blocked by Democrats who argued that it would suppress legitimate voters, and by Republicans who don't want to pick a fight on an issue they consider settled or politically toxic because they are freaking spineless. The political calculation here is obvious, but it's also very sophisticated. Trump knows that the intelligence community and its allies in both parties want 702 renewed. He knows that leadership in both chambers are desperate to avoid a lapse that they will believe will make them look weak on national security. By tying the two issues together, he creates leverage where he previously had none. He forces a vote on citizenship verification, an issue that polls extraordinarily well with the general public, but which Democrat donors and progressive activists despise. The establishments wanted to fight about surveillance. Trump is making them fight about elections instead. Here's where we help you. The same government that wanted broad surveillance authority over American communications cannot tell citizens that asking for proof of citizenship to vote is somehow extreme. Think about the contradictions being presented here. On one hand, we are told that the federal government needs the power to collect and search through millions of Americans' communications without a warrant. That is essential for national security. And that anyone who questions it is naive or unserious. On the other hand, we are told that asking someone to show a passport or a birth certificate before registering to vote is unacceptable. It's an unacceptable burden, a throwback to Jim Crow, and a threat to democracy. The cognitive dissonance is freaking staggering. If the government can surveil you without suspicion, surely it can ask whether you are legally eligible to vote before adding you to the rolls. The opponents of the Save America Act have their argument ready, of course. They will say that non-citizen voting is rare, okay, that the bill is a solution in search of a problem, that it will disenfranchise citizens who lack easy access to documentation. These are the same arguments that have been deployed against voter ID laws for decades. But here's the difference. This is not about showing ID at the polls. No. This is about proving eligibility at the point of registration. Currently, federal voter registration forms operate on the honor system. It asks the applicants to check a box attesting that they are citizens. There's no requirement to provide documentary proof. States are prohibited from adding such requirements to the federal forms under current law, which is why the Save America Act would need to pass to change the system. I have personally registered people to vote, and I had everybody check that box if they were a citizen. They could have had me a fake ID. I had no way to challenge it. If the honor system might have worked in a different era, but unfortunately, we no longer live in that era. We live in an era of mass migration, digital registration drives, and activist organizations with incentives to maximize turnout regardless of eligibility. We also live in an era where the same government that wants us to trust its surveillance apparatus has demonstrated repeatedly that it cannot be trusted with power. The FBI spied on a presidential campaign based on fabricated evidence. The IRS targeted conservative nonprofits. The intelligence community lied about the origin of COVID-19 and the Hunter Biden laptop story. The idea that this same apparatus should be granted expanded surveillance powers while simultaneously insisting that citizenship verification is beyond the pale. It's basically insulting the intelligence of the average American. Trump's maneuver puts every member of Congress in a bind. If you vote for FISA renewal without the Save America Act attached, you are voting to give the surveillance state what it wants while ignoring election integrity. Okay. If you vote against FISA renewal because the Save America Act is not attached, you are voting to let the program lapse, which the national security establishment will claim is reckless. There's no clean escape route. And that's the point. Trump is forcing a choice between two constituencies that have historically been allied: the national security hawks and the election integrity activists. He's betting that the Republican base cares more about secure elections than about the surveillance tools that have been used against them. The 19 Republicans who voted against the short-term extension are now in an interesting position. Most of them are conservatives who oppose FISA on principle, viewing it as unconstitutional. But some are also strong supporters of election integrity legislation. Trump's offer gives them a way to vote for surveillance renewal that they might otherwise oppose, provided they get something they want in return. Whether they take the deal, they take that deal remains to be seen. The Freedom Caucus has been skeptical of FISA reform that do not require a warrant for queries of American data. The Save America Act does not address that issue. It's a pure trade. Surveillance powers for citizenship verification. The Democrats' response has been predictable, but revealing. They have accused Trump of holding national security hostage to his election conspiracy theories. They have argued that the Save America Act is unnecessary because non-citizen voting is already illegal. This misses the point entirely. Of course it's illegal. The question is whether it is prevented. Murder is illegal too, yet we still have police and prisons. The fact that something is against the law does not mean it's not happening. And it certainly does not mean that we should remove mechanisms to detect and deter it. The current system has no mechanism to verify citizenship at the point of registration. It relies entirely on self-attestation. That's not security, that's theater. The broader implication here is about the hierarchy of political values in Washington. So for decades, the surveillance state has been treated as sacrosanct. Presidents of both parties have defended it. Congress has renewed it repeatedly with minimal changes. The intelligence community has developed a culture of impunity, secure in the knowledge that their programs are too technical and too scary for most politicians to oppose effectively. Now, election integrity, by contrast, has been treated as a fringe concern. Politicians to oppose effectively. Election integrity, by contrast, has been, again, treated as a fringe concern, something only paranoid partisans care about. Trump is trying to flip that hierarchy. He is saying that if Washington wants its spy powers, it must first secure the franchise. The ballot box is more important than the data center. Now, this is a fight that the establishment does not want to have. They do not. They would much rather debate warrant requirements and minimization procedures, technical issues that bore the public and allow the posture as concerned civil libertarians. They do not want debate whether non-citizens should be able to register to vote by checking a box. That debate expresses too much. It exposes the current system is designed to make verification difficult rather than easy. It exposes the same people who want to regulate every aspect of American life, from the gas stove in your kitchen, remember, to the car in your driveway, suddenly become libertarians when it comes to proving eligibility to vote. It exposes that opposition to citizenship verification is not about protecting voters, but about protecting a system that benefits from loose registration standards. The timing is also significant. We are 5 months from a presidential election. The border has been open for 3 years. Millions of people have entered the country, many of whom have been distributed into swing states. The administration has been registering people to vote at an unprecedented pace, including through executive actions that critics blur the line between legal and illegal residents. Trump is making the connection explicit. The same government that imported this population, that refuses to deport criminals, that give them housing and phones and debit cards, now wants you to trust that none of them are voting. And wants you to grant that trust while simultaneously demanding the powers to read your emails without a warrant. Now, what we're saying is the framing is not that Trump or the Save Act America is flawless legislation. None of it's flawless education. It is the contradiction being exposed is real and intolerable. A government that demands surveillance powers must first demonstrate that it can perform the basic functions of government, including maintaining the integrity of its elections. If citizenship is not a requirement for voting, then voting has no meaning. If the surveillance state is necessary for security, then election security is at best at least necessary, right? You can't have it both ways. You cannot claim that asking for an ID is authoritarian while defending warrantless wiretaps as essential liberty. Congress now faces a decision. Leadership will try to find a way to split the difference, perhaps by offering a standalone vote on the SAVE Act that they know will fail, or by attaching a weak reforms to FISA that don't address the core issues. Trump has signaled that he will not accept those fig leaves. He wants the bill passed, or he wants FISA to lapse. That's a hard line. And it will test the resolve of Republicans who have talked tough about election integrity, but have never been forced to actually block legislation over it. Okay. It will also test the Democrats who must now explain why they're willing to let surveillance powers expire rather than agree to citizenship verification. The hearings, the floor speeches, the leaked intelligence assessment warnings of imminent terrorist attacks. If the program lapses, the cable news segments about how Trump is endangering national security, all the op-eds from former CIA directors about how the Save America Act is a solution in search of a problem, all of it will miss the central point, which is that trust is a finite resource, and Washington has exhausted it. You don't get to spy on Americans and then lecture them about what's extreme. You don't get to open the border and then demand that no one question voter rolls. You don't get to treat citizenship as meaningless while treating surveillance as sacred. Trump has turned the spy state fight into an election integrity fight. However this ends, the question is now on the table, and it's not going away. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.